for winning the inner battle. Today we'll conclude the series that I would entitle the message, Diligent Souls. This last week I came across two stories of 23-year-olds from China. The first one was a story of a man by the name of Dr. Fong, and his son was 23 years old and hadn't really gotten his life started. He wouldn't go to college, he wouldn't go to work, he wouldn't leave the house. He'd get up early in the morning with bloodshot eyes, put in the batteries and play video games all day long. His fingers were literally blistered from playing the video games. He would neglect his health. He'd be dehydrated. He wouldn't be eating right. A pizza pocket here and there. And he'd play these long, engaging games for hours. And his dad said, son, you got to get a job. Son, you got to go to college. Son, when are you going to get your life going? You're 23 years old. So what the father did is he found out the video game his son was playing, and he found out who the best players in the world were. He contacted them, and he hired them. So every single time his son started playing the video game, the best players in the world would send their character, their avatar, and assassinate his son's character. Every single time the kid logged in to play, all of a sudden there'd be an arrow through his head. He'd start playing, there'd be a sword stabbing him through. Every time he'd go to do anything, here comes a battle axe. All of a sudden he'd be playing, a bunch of wolves come and eat him. He couldn't make any progress. He got so frustrated. And he threw the controller down in a rage. And then the dad said, see, I told you to get a job. And then he spilled the beans. I hired the top players to assassinate your character every time. Now, a few years before that, in the 1940s or so, there was a small village in China, and there was a 23-year-old orphan that grew up in this little village without electricity, without power, and really without any running water. His last name was Halfa. And Halfa was a young man that was very responsible. He got married, started raising a kid, but every day, everybody in the village, some 1,200 of them, had to walk around 3 mountains. It would take more than 2 hours to go to the next village, pick up some buckets of water, and bring them up 3 mountains back. Can you imagine every day carrying buckets of water back and forth for 4 hours? And they'd work in the fields making rice, making potatoes, and they would do the best they could with what they had, but it was meager living. These people, this village, average making $1 per person per month. Just destitute poverty. And Halfa said, we can't live like this. So they elected him to be the village chief. And he took a pickaxe, and he went to the first mountain, and he started pickaxing it. And they said, what are you doing? He says, I'm going to make a road from our village to that water source. Who's with me? And you know how people are. We're all with you for about a week. And then when the blisters start coming and the work starts getting hard, they all started dropping out. For the next 13 years, he would chip away at that mountain. And he would make a tunnel straight through it, 334 feet. And at the other side of that mountain, the people rejoiced, but the oasis that was there was gone by now. And so now he had to find another water source. The years would go by and people appreciated that path through the mountain and they would use it. Now they're only walking about an hour back and forth. It did save them a lot, but he wanted to find out a better way. And as he got older, he'd have like 10 children, and one of his granddaughters would get sick and would be so dehydrated from lack of water. He said, I got to figure this out. His daughter would die, and he would say, I got to figure this out. A lot of people would have quit by then. He only had a 5th grade education. But with what money he had, he went to the big city for a couple of years and he learned about irrigation. And he saw these new things, these canals that China was building at the time. And he wrote for grants and he would eventually get some, and he'd get the whole village to help dig through the next 2 mountains. And even though it took him some 50 years, eventually they built this big, huge canal feeding his whole village water. Transformed it for generations. Now they call it Halfa Canal after the man that did that. 2 23-year-olds. One was, what's the word? Lazy. The other one, extremely diligent. Able to do difficult things for long periods of time. Diligent meaning faithful. Diligent meaning consistent. And I want all of us to be diligent so that God can bless us. Diligent in our mental, diligent with our hands, and diligent with our spirit. Look, if you will, to the book of Proverbs, chapter